Welcome back to The Rebel's Edge. I'm Jon Najarian, Pete Najarian, joining me shortly to discuss what exactly is in that big, beautiful bill. We've got that, the 411 on a bunch of stocks today, and of course, some sports on The Rebel's Edge. Again, that's Pete Najarian on that side. I'm riding here on the bright line. But yeah, we'll fill you in on Alan Dershowitz and Ben Shapiro. We had dinner with them last night. Got great stories about that. Tim Draper, the VC. He's a third generation VC, Pete, born in Atherton, California. A lot to share about that, as well as some of the other fun stuff that's going on at the Wall Street conference. That one. But let's dive right into Macro Minute, shall we, Pete?
Let's do it.
No, thank you. Just, I've had enough hummus. Macro Minute, Pete, I'm going to say that Trump's big, beautiful bill, that's what we're talking about. The House basically stayed up all night. The U.S. House passed it. And so that's contributing to a spike in long-term Treasury yields yesterday, the fact that they were that close yesterday. And that is my Macro Minute today, Pete.
Yep, I totally agree with you on all fronts. I will just add one last thing, which is the 30-year mortgage. We're looking back a little bit, right? We always are, but we're looking back. It's unbelievable, John, the level in which they had the slowest pace of home sales since 2009. So I would say that we've shaken that off because of what we've witnessed over the last month in this big rally that off of those lows. So yeah, the mortgage rate's still up there. It's up there pretty high. As a matter of fact, the 30-year last I looked, John, very close to 7%, if not 7%. So that could be something that will weigh on some of the sales. But I think that the April sales make a lot of sense, but we ain't in April anymore.
We ain't in Kansas anymore either, Pete.
No.
Well, fantastic futures, crude oil slipping again. Not really any big story around that, but as Pete said, the existing home sales with the move up in interest rates, I'm guessing that he's either going to cite that or the VIX, which moved higher today.
Yeah, the VIX made a pretty nice move to the upside. It's in this range today, at least, of 20 to 22. So it's kind of inching its way up, John, after hitting 17 just a few days back ago. So that's something that I think we'll keep a close eye on. When you get into that low 20s, that we like to call that no man's land. And the reason is it really isn't giving us enough of a tell. And I think that's the best I can give you on that. And this 20 to 22 is exactly what I'm talking about. But one other thing that I will point out, and I know that you see this, John, because you are avidly more active than I am. But let me tell you something. Bitcoin at 111,700, that's quite an accomplishment. And we already talked about you had to go back to the beginning of the year when Bitcoin was about, 106, 107, and then we hit 106, 107 the other day. Well, today, 111,000. So pretty nice move for Bitcoin, I'd say. And names that follow Bitcoin, like Coinbase, like Robinhood, like Mara. I mean, there's Riot. There's a lot of those that are moving around. Take a look at Robinhood sometime. That thing is absolutely outperforming, and it's no longer really even in concert moving with Bitcoin. It's its own animal now. It's just off to the races.
Well, let's dive into stocks, Pete. I'm going to say Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Well, Donald Trump yesterday, Donald J. Trump, the president, said he's thinking about spinning those out as basically instead of being government, basically Federal National Mortgage Association. That's what that acronym stands for, Fannie Mae. That caused that equity to jump by some 30% early on, Pete, even more than that. And right now it's holding on to better than a 20% upside move.
Yeah, and it made a 40% move early on, established new 52-week highs of a little bit over $11 a share, John. So an absolute ripping move to the upside. You know, they've got substantial cash flows. That's something that the president actually addressed some of that, and discussing the fact with Besant and William Pulte, who you and I both know. I think they're going to probably figure out something there. They talked about finalizing this decision. I think with those three, I think they're going to finalize this decision, and I don't think it's going to take very long.
Well, then what about Snowflake, Pete? Because this
Ooh.
one's certainly not hurting the NASDAQ, which is up 80 points at mid-session, going from negative to positive like that. Well, Snowflake has to be at least contributing to it, Pete, because they put up earnings that were pretty spectacular, sales spectacular, and guidance spectacular. So when you've got all three of those spectacular, not surprising to see an 11% rally. Bang.
And you know what else? You know what else we're seeing on that rally, John? So it's 11%. It's established new 52-week highs, just under 200, 199.50. Last I looked, it was trading about 196, but twice the normal volume of the entire day within the first 2 hours. So there's a lot of activity going on there. But surprise, surprise, analysts are trying to catch up. Now, it's always interesting when they want to do this after the earnings. I think that the fact that we pay them so much money, or folks do pay their analysts so much money, you'd think it would be a better deal if they got in front of it before the earnings, so people had a better chance like we do with unusual options, but they don't do that. They did raise the guidance. I thought that was huge. And the fact that they absolutely crushed it, John, in every single category. You can't find anywhere where you could say, well, but Snowflake didn't quite do this. Yes, they did, in every single front. So an amazing move that it's making is deservedly so, because of the fact that you can't punch holes anywhere in what we just got delivered today as far as their Q1 earnings, revenue, all of it.
Well, you know, they're that close to 200 at mid-session, Pete. Like you said, moved through 195, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then basically touching 200 right now. All right. So what about the solar stocks? Why are they getting hit? Well, because you're not going to get basically a credit for Chinese imported solar, which means that a lot of those rooftop solar things, Pete, that people were basically getting out there, like Sunrun, symbol RUN, or a number of others were Solar Edge, SDEG, I think it is. Those are just getting cracked today, because in the bill, they're taking away some of those credits, especially for the imported stuff.
Yeah, the Chinese. If you look at First Solar, there's a completely different thing going on there, but their manufacturing's in the U.S. So you look at these, and you talked about that, John. Solar Edge definitely getting hit pretty hard today, down about, last I looked, it was about 26%. Could have moved by now. That's the way the market is trading, as we all know. But Sunrun absolutely getting crushed it, down about 37%, near their 52-week low. So are they getting beat up? Yes. Are they getting beat up probably for the right reasons? Probably so, based upon what's going on and what's in the really big, beautiful bill that
Really
they've
big,
got.
beautiful bill.
I had to do it.
Well, I bet you're loving what's going on in AAP, Pete, Advanced Auto Parts, because that's a 30% move in the right direction to the upside after they topped revenue, earnings per share, and they gave pretty interesting guidance. So this one, AAP, a strong performer today.
Yeah, when you beat on the top and the bottom, that's always great. But then when you add other things to it, John, that's when people get pretty excited. Strategic initiatives that they had out there, they're making a lot of progress with that. Their total revenue was down a little bit year over year, but they did reaffirm the guidance going forward for 2025 for the full year. So yeah, they did enough that people were extremely excited. As a matter of fact, the highest level I saw, John, they were up as much as 46% at one point earlier before we came on. So it's a stock that people really, I think, were just kind of waiting, and I think they're pouncing. And one of the other things that I think came out of this one was they said, look, we're going to be able to deal with tariffs. Just bring it on. We can deal with it. And I think that got people on board to, hey, look, if these guys got that, then regardless of what happens in 90 days, things might look pretty good. And I think that's exactly where they put themselves.
And folks, we did have unusual activity. Back in April, they were buying upside calls all the way out in June. And they've been right on this one. 4,500, that's 450,000 share equivalent, since every option's for 100 shares. So that's outperformance in a big way, because the stock going from a close yesterday, Pete, of 31.31 to a high today, I think, of 49 or 48. Just a phenomenal move.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you want to get some of this, folks, and you don't really know enough about options yet, it's not an option to just trade stock. Go grab the book. You can scan that QR code that Jared's putting up there. It's notanoption.com, or like I say, scan the QR code. It'll take you right there. Free book. You just pay shipping and handling.
Mm-hmm. All right, we want to jump to some sports, John. Let's go into the NFL and what we're seeing out of that. Now, yesterday we talked about the tush push, right? We wanted to find out, what are they going to do in these meetings? Are they going to approve it, or are they going to go up against that? And there are teams. Green Bay Packers were one of the teams that said, "Hey, we got to get rid of this thing." Well, the problem for the Green Bay Packers was they didn't have enough of the teams willing to say that. They did have the numbers. They had 24 votes, and they were 22-10 in terms of, yes, we're going to take this thing and it's going to be ousted. But problem is, they needed 24 votes. So the fact that they didn't get there, they're going to still be able to do the tush push. A lot of people talking about that one. We figured we should at least give a little update since we teased that out there yesterday. The other thing I wanted to kick off with you, John, is the kickoff. And that's something that I think is interesting that they've decided to do this coming year. You can only do an onside kick. They make too many complicated rules. You can only do an onside kick if your team is trailing and it's in the fourth quarter. So, kind of making it complex. I guess that gives away the fact that, the surprise onsides are no longer out there, I guess, because I think people are going to probably figure out when they're going to be doing that, and they're going to probably have to tell the refs and everything else. The last thing I'll say about the NFL that I think is really kind of interesting, because a lot of the players don't get the opportunities to do things outside of the NFL, but they are allowing the players to be in the flag football that's going to be in the Olympics in 2028 out in Los Angeles, John. You know who first guy is who signed up? He said, if we can do it, I'm in. I want to get a gold medal. Justin Jefferson, wide receiver, Minnesota Vikings. He said, I'm first in line. Everybody can get behind me. I want to get a gold medal. So pretty cool, actually. And you got to love that there's that much excitement going on.
I just had to mute it because the Brightline announcements were coming in, Pete. But
of course,
yeah, I think this is a big deal. And I think that your tush push vote, Pete, there was a lot of betting going on with the tush push vote. There really was. All the predict exchanges were covering it. And just as we said yesterday, it was expected to not be banned. And indeed, it survives. So that's pretty interesting, along with the Justin Jefferson, of course, Pete. Love that. And I always love when Ant comes out and slaps him high five, along with J.J. McCarthy on courtside for the Timberwolves. That's pretty cool.
By the way, you know who was in Castro's? And it obviously wasn't Ray Lewis, because you were talking to him yesterday, but you know who was in there? Well, that quarterback you just mentioned from the Minnesota Vikings.
J.J.
Yeah. Just the other day. So we've got quite a few JJs here with the Minnesota Vikings, so it makes it kind of fun. John, next thing I got up for you is this. I think Shedeur Sanders should have paid more attention. We all know that he should have, but paid more attention when he was going to the draft, right? Or not even the draft, going through all the different mechanics that they go through. They come and they do your own private workouts, all the rest of that. And he didn't put in the work and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of guys said, well, this guy's not a first pick kind of a quarterback. This guy's a little bit lower than that. I think he went a hell of a lot lower than anybody ever would have expected. No doubt about that. We all know that. But let me just give you some numbers on where he might have screwed up a little bit, John, by not paying attention. And when he went to the combines, he wasn't paying attention. A lot of teams talked about this. So here's the deal. Cam Ward was the first pick in the draft. Cam Ward just signed a 4-year, $48.7 million contract, John. $32 million of it is signing bonus, okay? First pick in the draft, Cam Ward out of Miami. Shedeur Sanders, 4 years, $4.6 million. If I'm not mistaken, he was making $4.6 million last year, or maybe even more than that, $6 million at Colorado. So it's a long ways for him. He's going to have to do a lot of catching up into the future, John, if he wants to kind of get anywhere in there. But it shows you the difference when you get in the NFL, a number one pick in Cam Ward or the number 144 pick, like what we were seeing with Shedeur Sanders. So just an amazing difference in how those numbers really get put together and where they are getting put together based upon where they were drafted and all the rest of it. The only other thing I wanted to throw out there for you, John, was it's really sad to see Irsay, 65 years old, drop dead for the Colts, man. I mean, the owner, dropped dead yesterday. Really sad. This guy had a lot of demons. There's no doubt in his past. He had issues. He was very upfront with that and some of the penalties that he had. But he had a great couple of runs. But one of his best, John, or actually his best, was the Super Bowl against the Chicago Bears with Tony Dungy at quarterback, or excuse me, as head coach, and Peyton Manning at quarterback, and they beat the Bears. That was pretty amazing. I mean, that to see the Colts get into that position and all the movement from Baltimore to Indianapolis, all the things that went on during all these years, really, really sad, because Irsay was one of those guys that the team loves him. He gets in the locker room and plays around with the guys, does a lot of crazy stuff, and I think he's probably one of the more well-liked owners probably in the entire league.
Yeah, and I love the way that some of his GMs in the past, Pete, would go after Mel Kiper and things like that, because Kiper would say, "What the hell kind of a draft pick is that?" But I would really highlight, Pete, what you were saying about Shedeur, because the rookie contracts, they have moved up. It used to be like 20 mil for 4 years with an option, and now, as Pete just said, with Cam Ward, 48 mil, and 40 of it was guaranteed. That's 10 times more than Shedeur's going to get over 4 years. So he should have paid more attention, and he should have probably been a stand-up guy instead of what he, acting like a prima donna. But that's the way it goes. All right, folks. Thanks for joining us. Remember, we don't do the show on Friday, but we do have a holiday coming up on Monday. So we're going to start pricing in some pretty severe time decay by about noon tomorrow. It will be. So if you're an options trader, beware of that. And Pete and I will be back Tuesday next week. See you then at 1 o'clock.